Hello and welcome back to another episode of Hear the Cannons. I am your host, Colin Hallboom, joined by some of my colleagues over at BucsGameday, which is Sports Illustrated's only website dedicated specifically to covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Of course, I'm talking about our writer, JC Allen, other writer, Caleb Allen, and our lead editor, River Wells. Sorry, Josh Allen, Caleb Skinner. Thank you for the correction, JC. And I'm Colin Hallboom, as I mentioned. Anyway, before we get into tonight's episode, which is a big one, we are all very excited to talk about what is to come tomorrow night. So we're doing our preview episode a day ahead. We always go Wednesday, but the game's on Thursday night, prime time, first primetime game of the year for the Bucs. So we are looking forward to that. First, please make sure you are liking, following, subscribing, and all that jazz to our YouTube channel. Check us out there. Make sure you are rating and reviewing on whatever audio platform you stream your podcast from, and make sure you're checking out BucsGameday on the daily because we got articles dropping left, right, and center. That being said, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers currently sit first place in the NFC South at 3-1, while the Atlanta Falcons, the first divisional NFC South division matchup for the Bucs this year, we're heading to Atlanta, and they're in second place at 2-2, but they already have a division win over the New Orleans Saints, which means if the Bucs lose this game, they will also fall to second place in the NFC South, while the Falcons would remain undefeated in the division, giving them a pretty big leg up. So this is not a small game by any means, even though it's early. The question I'm going to pose to each of you gentlemen, and I'm going to start with Caleb, just give me a quick answer here. Is it a must-win for the Bucs?
No, I don't believe it's a must-win for the Bucs. You're going to see them again later down the line, and then if you get to play the Panthers twice and also the Saints twice. So at the end of the day, you win the majority of those games, you're in. So I don't think it's a must-win, especially this early on in the season in a short week on a Thursday night.
Okay, River, what do you think? Do you agree with Caleb?
Yeah, somewhat. I think this next stretch is very important for Tampa Bay, but I think you want to at least split it. And if that's Falcons, win, Saints loss, Falcons loss, Saints win, etc. I think that's the way to do it. Losing 2 would be unfortunate. But other than that, no. I mean, you can beat the Falcons when they come back to Tampa Bay, but it'd be really nice to win both of these. You get out, ahead of the NFC South, so it would be huge. But we'll see how it goes.
And I mean, the Bucs lost to the Falcons at home last year, and that was with Desmond Ridder at quarterback. So,
and now they have the throwback uniforms, and you know how fans feel about those. So,
JC, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a must-win, but I think it as they have both alluded to, River and Caleb, that it gives you a leg up, right? You do face this team in 4 weeks after the Saints, after the Ravens. You get them at home next, and you're rocking the creamsicles at home for that game. So. I think the Falcons are rocking their retro reds tomorrow. So I think it's a game that gives you an advantage, keeps you ahead of the curb. But must win? No, I don't think so. But it sure would be nice.
You're all such level-headed individuals. I thought someone might bite with the must win, but I agree that's a bit of an ambitious term for at least for a game this early. But I sure think that, right now Kirk Cousins looks not like Kirk Cousins that you might expect, and I think they're really trying to baby him along in this new offense and keep him in the pocket. Right, he's not rolling out at all, so it would be huge. I think the sooner you can get that win versus the Falcons in the division, I think is very important. But I would tend to agree, as boring as that is, that I don't think it is yet a must win, but a very important game nonetheless. So. Let's talk about what we know about the Atlanta Falcons. A lot of changes this offseason, brought in some guys, Justin Simmons, Matthew Judon, re-signed A.J. Terrell, and, of course, the aforementioned Kirk Cousins. Made them the favorites, all those moves on paper. They were the betting favorites. They probably still are. JC, what can you tell us about this offense, this new-look offense, as they continue to search for their form? They also brought in a new coaching staff, which includes their OC, Zach Robinson, formerly of the Rams, just like Liam Cohen at a point.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is the coaching change, right? You bring another guy from that McVay tree over that's going to, run a lot of motion, put guys in advantageous positions, do some window dressing to kind of undress coverages on the defensive side. Unfortunately, it hasn't gone
Yeah, and River, how about the other side of the ball? Because there's some big names there as well. I mean, Grady Jarrett's been there for time, and he does his thing. Matt Judon, Justin Simmons, I mentioned, being brought over in free agency. They already got AJ Terrell at corner. I believe he's 2nd highest paid in the league on an annual basis, and the highest guarantees ever given out to a corner for a 4-year deal. Bunch of guys on that side of the ball. What is your impression of the Falcons defense and what the Buccaneers can expect tomorrow?
Yeah, well, it's Raheem Morris and Jimmy Lake kind of with that defense there. They run a lot of 2-high shell, kind of the league's doing a lot of 2-high shell, cover 2 looks. They play a lot of zone coverage, which makes sense because they have a lot of really great defenders over there. You talked about some of them, but I mean, Jesse Bates, one of the best safeties in the National Football League. And then, of course, Justin Simmons next to him. That's a horror movie pair right there. You have Matthew Judon on the edge, but the Falcons' edge rushing has not quite been amazing so far this year. So Justin School might have a bit of an easier time there at right tackle because it's been pretty rough in that sort of instance. So that'll be something to look out for sure. They'll definitely be running that 2 high, so trying to limit those deep shots like a lot of the league is doing. So Baker Mayfield might want to take a look at the intermediates. Chris Godwin's obviously fantastic in that sort of range as well. And Mike Evans can operate anywhere. AJ Terrell's kind of a pain to deal with. He's very, very good. Mike Evans and him have had some on and off matchups. Bucs fans remember last year in 2023 at home in Raymond James Stadium. Mike Evans got the best of him, but then he was nearly invisible the next time around. So they'll definitely have to think about that. A lot of superstars kind of contend with there, but defense not quite as ferocious, I think, as expected. So it'll be an interesting matchup.
Great breakdown, River. I like that. Caleb, let's talk about the coaching side. I alluded to it already. We got Raheem Morris, former Buccaneers head coach. He gets his second chance at the helm after an impressive job with the Rams. And then you got Zach Robinson, who he brought over. And again, of course, Liam Cohen's NFL experience, at least his most recent NFL experience, comes from the Rams system, that Sean McVay tree. So lots of interesting storylines there. I'm curious where you're going to take it if you break down this coaching matchup we got.
Yeah, I mean, we can start on the offense since that's kind of where you left off here. Colin, you mentioned Zach Robinson coming from, that tree of where the Rams, from that Shanahan, over there from the 49ers and then with the McVay as well. So kind of portion of that tree is running that offense there. And he's also got familiarity, excuse me, I can't even get it right. Familiarity with Baker Mayfield and Liam Cohen, both. So Liam was there for a portion of time and Zach Robinson was there and Baker was there and they have a good relationship as well. He's been in a multiple different roles when he was with the Rams, whether that's, being a quarterback's coach, wide receivers coach, passing game coordinator, different sorts of that. So this is his first year actually being an offensive play caller. So really interesting to see how he's going to be able to do here against Todd Bowles. But going off of that, they really like to use 11 personnel, which is that 3 wide receiver, 1 running back, 1 tight end look, which is great. They run that the second most percentage in the league. No huddle and a lot of motions that you're going to be able to see from them. Like to establish the run game with outside zone runs. They are one of the highest percentage run teams on outside zone. So you're going to be seeing Bijan. They're going to try and run Bijan outside. They're obvious rushing downs and passing downs for them. So it's going to be very easy for Todd Bowles to be able to key on what they're trying to do there. But what you have to, keep an eye out for is that eye candy as well. So it's very, cut and dry. It's not too fancy. You can see the struggles with Kirk Cousins trying to get the ball and trying to work from the shotgun that he's not comfortable in. So they're still trying to figure it out on that side of the ball. And then you can flip over to the other side with Raheem Morris and Jimmy Lake. Obviously, Raheem Morris coming from that defensive side of the background. He and Todd Bowles grew up from a town over from each other, I think, in New Jersey back in the day. So there's familiarity between those two there as well. As River had alluded to earlier, they do use the 2 high shell look a lot. It's pretty impressive. They use it the most in the league, and they use 1 shell, which is that cover 1, the least amount in the league. So really heavy zone that the Buccaneers are going to be facing this week is what that ultimately leads to, right? So then they're going to try and prevent that big play from happening, and it's ultimately going to force the Bucs to rely on the short game, running the ball, which we know that they are going to be able to do in this game against the Falcons because they haven't been able to stop the run and they really haven't been able to get to the quarterback. Even though they might blitz a lot, they're not going to be able to get there, and they haven't been able to get there. So another good game here for the Bucs offense against Atlanta's defense. It's going to be a tough game on short rest. We'll see, but you're going to see a lot of what you saw against the Broncos of what Atlanta is going to kind of incorporate into their offense.
Great stuff, man. And I mean, lots of zone, advantageous maybe for one Chris Godwin, who has absolutely been ripping it this year. So that could play in nicely. But I'm going to defer to River for this. I want to know, as you look at these two teams and how they match up anywhere on the field, what do you think is the Bucs' biggest advantage?
Experience is Tampa Bay's biggest advantage. Caleb talked a lot about all of this just now, but Todd Bowles has been a head coach for a little bit. Liam Cohen knows Zach Robinson from time in LA. Baker Mayfield knows all those guys from time in LA. It's even been a little bit since Raheem Morris was the interim head coach of the Falcons in 2020. That was 4 seasons ago, much less the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers way before that. And Zach Robinson is his first time calling plays as an offensive coordinator. Liam Cohen, it kind of is a little bit as well. He's had some other experience here and there, but that's going to be the big key. They have a lot more experience. They know everyone very well. Like you mentioned, Caleb, town over in New Jersey with Raheem Morris and Todd Bowles, and they're going to use that to their advantage. So they're the more experienced team. They play better football so far, and I think that knowledge and that tenure could be a difference in this game.
Caleb, on the other side of the coin, is there an area that you can think of that might be a disadvantage for the Bucs? And if so, like their biggest disadvantage in this game?
And there's two different points of emphasis that I could say that could be their disadvantage. I think the short week doesn't help, but combined with the fact that you're not at home for that short week, you don't get to stay where you are, and that is going to be more hurtful in this game. And I think that'll be a disadvantage to them because of it. They're not at home. They're not getting to kind of relax, and because it's already tough, right? Having to have a shortened schedule by 3 days. So I think that's definitely a disadvantage, but ultimately, I think it's going to be for the Buccaneers. Their disadvantage is going to be their 3 through 5 wide receivers, who are going to be the guys to step up in the absence of a Jalen McMillan and a Trey Palmer. We saw Cameron Johnson drop that touchdown, and maybe he should be able to bounce back from that. We did see Sterling Shepard have a good game coming up off the practice squad himself, 3 catches for 51 yards, so good outing there too. But again, the Eagles secondary is not the Falcons secondary, in my opinion. The Falcons secondary, they have probably one of the best safety tandems in the NFL, obviously headed by Jesse Bates there. And then, I think JC had mentioned their corner's name earlier as well, who is fantastic himself. So they have, yes, AJ Terrell. There we go. So yeah, it's a combined effort on their part, and they play very well. Then you throw in the fact that their defense could wake up at any moment, their defensive line, especially considering it's a division game. So Baker might have to get rid of the ball a little bit faster. And if they're locking down on Mike Evans and Chris Godwin all game, you can see if Cade Otton will step up, and maybe that'll be a good thing that he does. We did see him, have a decent game last game, and then had a career high in catches the game before that against Denver. So, which one of these guys, whether it's 3 through 5 in the wide receiver room right now for the Buccaneers, is going to be able to step up and make those plays when it matters most against a above average and probably a top 10 secondary in the NFL?
Yeah, and it's funny, like it's not funny at all, actually, but coming into this season, all the talk was who's going to win that wide receiver 3 job. Is it going to be the rookie everyone loves, Jalen McMillan out of Washington, or is it going to be Trey Palmer? And now here we are, just a few weeks into the season, and they're both injured. Yet at the same time, that's not even anywhere close to the most concerning injury when we're haven't seen Kancey yet this year. Winfield went down pretty well right away almost. And then Gadecki's still not available. So, and they've lost Servassier Dennis at a crucial position, who was really making strides at the linebacker. So a lot of the matchups positionally between the Bucs and the Falcons are going to be altered. JC mentioned Caleb McGarry's going to play, but he's hurt. They're down their stud center. So injuries all over the place. That's the NFL, though. That's life. And Todd Bowles delivered a strong message to his team about, we're going to play with what we got. And you got to love that from the head coach. But, JC, I'm curious if you can give us, whether it has anything to do with these injuries or not at all, a particular matchup that's something you're going to be keeping a real close eye on and you think could have a significant impact on the outcome of this football game.
Yeah, I think there's a couple. And I think, Caleb and River kind of touched on them, and I'll elaborate on them a little bit, but I touched on it earlier as well too. I think Kyle Pitts versus KJ Britt, that's going to be a matchup to watch. If they can get, and you kind of mentioned the reason why, right? Servassier Dennis down with an injury, so shout out to all 3 of you guys for bringing up points to my next to what I'm going to be talking about here. But KJ Britt, if you can get him singled up, the Falcons get him singled up on Kyle Pitts, you can take advantage of that matchup. Kyle Pitts is a much more explosive athlete than KJ Britt is. And I think that's one area where if you're the Bucs, you have to kind of have a plan to make sure that there is some help there, or you can kind of make sure that that's not somewhere where they're going to continue to kill you. I think, as Caleb alluded to, that safety, that secondary, and River talked about it when he talked about the defense, that's that combination of Kyle Pitts, Justin Simmons and Jesse Bates, 2 of the best to do it in the league. As far as free safeties, neither of them are really true strong safeties, and they're trying to figure out that role. And but both of them, Baker talked about it too. The athletic safeties, they're able to do a lot of stuff in coverage, pressure wise. They're great tacklers. And he said to him, what stands out on tape is just how great of vets they are. They've seen it all. They've seen a lot of pass patterns. They understand how to pass things off. For those 2 guys to be in a second together, it presents its own issues. They're able to disguise stuff. They do a really good job at that. And they both have really, really, really good ball skills too. So that's right from the horse's mouth, who's going to have to navigate that matchup. And as River said, stuff underneath and kind of not targeting those guys. That's going to be crucial for them to have success, Baker have success, and not, make any mistakes and turnovers. And then, as River just mentioned too, that Chris Godwin matchup, getting him involved. D'Alford, their nickel cornerback, has struggled this season. He's been up and down, and that's a matchup that it can eat. Mike Evans has over 1,400 yards receiving against this team, and Chris Godwin has just under 1,000 yards receiving against this team in their matchups here. They both typically eat. Again, as River mentioned, sometimes it's AJ Terrell one game. The next time it's Mike Evans. It kind of flip back and forth. But I think Chris Godwin against Alford is going to be a matchup that you can exploit there on offense, and one that you can kind of keep that ball away from that disgusting secondary tandem back there who can cause plays and disruption at any time.
So you're telling me I should give him one more chance and start Kyle Pitts in fantasy this week, JC? Is that what you're telling me?
No.
I would say no, but I would say there's a chance you could have a good game.
You could go read Rivers' best bets, and then you'll know.
I think both find a way to mitigate that mismatch, but again, there's going to be opportunities, and Kyle Pitts has to take advantage of them.
Love it. And yeah, speaking of best bets, we're going to get it. I'm going to throw these guys a couple prop bets from this game and see if where they're leaning on those in just a moment. But that reminds me, Caleb, I mean, best bets, talking fantasy, talking quote pieces, talking live breaking news, opinions, whatever it is that relates to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We got you covered at BucsGameday.com. So make sure that is your one-stop shop to consume all your Buccaneers coverage. And make sure you subscribe to the channel on YouTube while you're here. And if you got any questions, don't be shy. Float them out there into the chat, and good chance we'll get to them live on the air. So that being said, I'm going to go to Caleb first with this prop bet. And I'm putting these guys on the spot. They don't know what these bets are, so that's part of the fun. Rachaad White, I tweeted it out during the game. Like, I believe he is in the conversation of the best pure pass-catching running backs in the league. And I've been riding his over, not only in receptions, but yards. Last week, he hit the over on yards, which was right around 20, but he missed the receptions, which was 3.5. This week, I'm curious, Caleb, are you going over or under 21.5 receiving yards for Rachaad White?
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with the over. It's having it that low on Rachaad White is kind of embarrassing if you're Vegas to me. Like that's a spot, but I guess as a small market team, the Buccaneers and Rachaad White, or people who bet on Rachaad White, are probably loving that. But yeah, it needs to be at least 10 yards higher, in my opinion, if you really want to, make a case for yourself of it being a good bet or not a good bet. But yeah, definitely over. And I'd go too far to say that he'll probably see more catches out of the backfield this week.
So maybe time to hike up those milestones on whatever betting site you use. I think 10 yards would be a little bit wild. I'd be betting the under, even though I've been riding Rachaad White for his receiving yards. You put it at
40 a game, dude. It's pretty tough.
Put it at 31.5. I'm taking the under just because I have to. Okay, JC, here's an interesting one. Kirk Cousins to throw an interception is -120. Do you think that happens? Is that a bet you would take, or like the Bucs receivers not always have the reputation for coming down with picks? We saw one Jamel Dean should have had this past Sunday, but they have had a couple, particularly in Detroit with Christian Izien and Isaiah McCollum coming away with picks. Does Kirk Cousins throw one in this game? Are you taking that bet that he throws a pick or not?
Yeah, I'll take that. I think the offensive line is kind of banged up. I think you can get some good, solid interior pressure from Vita Vea. I think if McGarry, who's not 100%, you can get some looks with Yaya Diaby, JTS, and Chris Braswell, who's really kind of come on the last couple of weeks. If Levante David didn't make that one of those sacks, he was there to make it, and he was seconds, like inches away from coming down with a sack against Jalen Hurts if he was a tick faster. So I think the rotation they have on that outside linebacker room, compared with the excellent stellar play of a guy like Zion McCollum, who is Pro Football Focus's #1 cornerback in the league, and he's been doing it consistently since he's been back in that game after going out early in the Commanders game. I think he's got a chance to get a turnover here. Like I said, it hasn't been Drake London's best start to the season, and they can get pressure on Kirk, rattle him, get him to make some mistakes. He's thrown 4 interceptions on the season so far. He's been sacked 6 times. He's not very mobile. If they can get him rattled a little bit, getting the ball out a little quicker than he wants to, and a little bit less accurate than he can be, I think they can come down with an interception. I'm going to go with Zion McCollum with the pick. I'm going to call it the player too. I think he gets a second interception on the season.
All right. Probably not as good of odds as if you picked Jamel Dean, but I like how you're giving us a player specifically, JC. All right, River.
That's me.
That's you. Anytime TD scorer, you got to pick one of these Buccaneers to do it, okay? Or maybe you pick none. I don't know. Depends on how you see this game playing out. We got Mike at plus 120. I'll tell you the odds as well. Godwin at plus 150, which is wild because he's been touching pay dirt frequently of late. And then Bucky Irving and Rachaad White are each plus 130. Bucky got in last week. I don't think Rachaad White has a rushing touchdown this year, or maybe a touchdown period. I don't know. But what are you going with there, if anything?
Well, I actually did this in my best bets article I came out with today, and I chose Mike Evans. And the reason I chose Mike is because, like we mentioned before, he's had some good games against AJ Terrell. He's due for a good game against AJ Terrell since last time they played the Falcons in Atlanta. He was a little bit quieter. So I think he's due for a game there. He took the momentum from that touchdown against the Philadelphia Eagles, and we know now that Liam Cohen wants to get him involved in the game plan because typically when you throw the football to Mike Evans, good things happen. So I definitely think that that's going to be a big thing there, and I'm going to take Mike. I wouldn't be surprised if Chris Godwin did because he's had a little bit of a touchdown thing going. I mean, he's only missed a touchdown in one game, but I think this is going to be a Mike game. I can feel it.
Okay, I'm going to just tack on there with a hypothetical, well, not a hypothetical question. It's a real question, in fact. Mike Evans, currently ESPN projects him on pace for like 910 yards. I think he's got three tutties already, but he's just like a little bit over 200 yards receiving on the year. I mean, I'm going to throw this to you, JC. Do you think Mike Evans is at risk of not reaching that 1,000 yard mark this season for the first time in his illustrious decade-plus career?
I talked about this the other day. I think it's a possibility. He's still got a good opportunity. He just needs a couple of big games to get there. I'm not going to I did it 2 years ago. I said Mike Evans won't get 1,000 yards. So I'm never going to openly come out and say Mike Evans is getting 1,000 yards because he'll prove me wrong again. But I think there's a possibility. He's on average for just under it, I think, right now. And certainly they need to get him involved more. Mike Evans said it on Total Access last week. He needs to touch the ball early in the game to get his juices up and get him going. And you saw what happened last week against the Eagles once they did. Brady said the same thing on broadcast. I always look for Mike early to get him going because I know he's a guy that needs to touch the ball early. And I think Cohen did a good job at making that an emphasis. If he continues doing that going forward, I think you'll find more success from Mike Evans. I think last week was a good matchup for him to exploit. They haven't always been good. Patrick Surtain, what can he do? Yeah, and he's got some other cornerbacks that he'll face up that will be difficult. But yeah, they got to get him involved, and he's got to make the plays too. He's got to make the missed tackles and keep going and get those yards after catch as well. So I think he'll still hit it, but it's going to be close. It might be like that. I think it was the 2018 year when he literally finished 1,001 yards. It's going to be close.
Yeah, and then there was that year he had the huge game, the last game of the season with Tom versus Carolina, where he like blew up. I forget how many yards he had, but that was pretty epic too. He right. wants it. He wants it. Okay, real quick, River, do you think he gets it? Just give me a yes or a no.
Yes.
Caleb.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. We are all optimistic, and why wouldn't you be based on that dude's track record? That's all I got to say there. River Wells, that is your name. I know you reminded me after I said it earlier. Give me your score prediction for this game, man. In Atlanta, right? It's going to be hostile. First divisional opponent for the Bucs this year. Atlanta's coming off a big win. Those fans are going to be fired up. I know you're going to be in attendance representing Bucs Game Day, as is JC, because we got you covered even on the road. But River, what happens on that final scoreboard when that final whistle blows?
I've gone back and forth on this, and I wouldn't be surprised if Tampa Bay dropped this game. They're injured. Atlanta's not a bad football team, but I think the Bucs have played better football than Atlanta has, especially against similar opponents. Atlanta probably should have lost against the Philadelphia Eagles had Saquon Barkley just held on to that football, and the Bucs kind of dismantled them in Week 4. So I think they played better against similar opponents. I like their offense a little bit better. I like the experience. So I think it's going to be a real close one in the A. I think it's 24-21 is what I'm going.
a PG show.
Sorry, could you say that score one more time?
24-21.
24-21. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I like it.
Bucks.
Caleb, Okay. Caleb, let's throw to you, buddy. What's your score prediction on this one?
Yeah. I don't know. I just don't like a lot about it. It just doesn't feel right. I just get like one of those feelings, short week, still missing all these guys. Atlanta probably needs this game more than we do at this point in their home area. I think they're starting to kind of find their stride as a team a little bit, and they're not really going to have to do much to kind of beat this team with missing all these players still. At some point, some team is going to figure out what the Bucs are trying to do with some of these guys who are stepping up, but it could be this week. I think the Falcons are going to get one of two games. I think they're better off doing it at home than trying to get one in Tampa. So we'll go with that. And I've got the Falcons eking out a very, very close game, 24-21.
Okay, two 24-21s, which is what I had as well. I won't tell you who I picked though. JC, what is your score prediction? What do you think? You're going to be there too.
Yeah, so I originally had this as a loss for the Bucs when I did my in-season predictions, but the way I see it is the Falcons haven't been that great of a team. The fact of the matter is they're 2-2, but they've won their 2 games by a margin of just 3 points combined. Kirk Cousins does not look like the same player prior to his injury. The offensive line is dealing with key injuries. The defensive side of the ball, the secondary has been really good in their red zone defense. Bend but don't break has been really strong, but and limiting passing yards. But their run defense has been atrocious. Their third down defense has been atrocious, and their ability to pressure the quarterback has been, as you guessed it, atrocious. The Bucs need to be able to establish the ground game here. They need to be able to get in those third and manageables, and they need to get after Kirk Cousins and protect as well. I think Justin School had a bounce back game. Trishan Wirfs is going to be Trishan Wirfs, and I think I really like what I saw to Cody Mock, and Barton continues to impress, and Bredesen continues to grow in that role too. So from what I thought that, beginning they were going to potentially drop this game, the Bucs have shown to me that they can win a variety of ways. They can bounce back from adversity. They can win gritty. They can win big. They have one of the better passing offenses in the league. Their defense has played phenomenal, even without some of their key starters. I still think it's going to be a difficult game for the Bucs to win for all the reasons that Caleb just mentioned. Short week. You're dealing with, you're traveling. You're in, as River so eloquently put it, you're in the A. So I believe it's going to be a tough matchup for them to overcome. But I do have them coming out on top by the score of 20-17. Again, a close, grinded out game. Don't expect a really thrilled Al Michaels tomorrow night, because he's not going to be.
Well, based on our scores, at least it sounds like it'll be competitive and close, and I think Al Michaels could get excited about that. And you're right, JC, the Bucs can win in a variety of different ways, but they can also lose to Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos at home.
Beat the Jets the next week, though.
Yeah, would he throw for 60 yards? Like
in one of the games we've ever seen. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't watch that one, but I didn't.
Been strong all week, all season though.
It's just Sean Payton circling games on his calendar.
Oh, Caleb! Pew pew pew.
But I have the Bucs winning 24-21. I think they're going to squeak it out, but I do have serious concerns, and the Luke Gedeke injury is starting to scare the you-know-what out of me. Never good when we're talking about a concussion, missing this many games in a row. Bucs are notorious.
Didn't it?
Yeah, it did, right? Ali Marpet reference right there, I assume. Very similar situation, but it's very common in the sport, as we know. But boy, oh boy, that does not inspire confidence. I think Gedeke's huge, not just in the run game, in the pass game, for the whole offense. So I was hoping he'd be available this week. He's not, but I picked him to win anyway. So it would be huge for the Bucs to come out of this 4-1 and have been resting guys like Canty and Winfield and Gedeke, not to mention McMillan, Palmer, and Sarossi Dennis as well. So with that, those are our score predictions. As I already mentioned, JC Allen and River Wells will be live, so make sure you're following them on Twitter. Their handles are on the screen, at River H. Wells, at JC Allen NFL. And the same goes for Caleb, at CHS Knoll. And while you're at it, you give your boy a follow too. No one's going to hate you for it. But make sure you're checking out BucsGameday.com more importantly, because we got all the info coming your way all day, every day, all year long. Till next time, we'll talk to you Wednesday. In fact, no, pardon me. We'll be live right after the game. We'll be doing an instant reaction episode. So make sure you're subscribed so you know when we go live for that. Turn the notifications on so you don't miss it. Always great to get that insight immediately after the game. And we'd love to hear from our viewers and what they took away from the game. So until next time, be well, go Bucs.